Good evening and welcome to yet another WordPress Developers Meetup this month for August. I've got an apology up front, I'm afraid. If you will have seen advertised on the Meetup page that Jafe was going to come up from Tassie to do a talk. Unfortunately, he had to cancel the trip at the last minute, so we're trying to guilt Jafe into coming up later this year and to do a presentation for us then. We have a Slack channel for a whole lot of the sort of Australian WordPress community at WP Australia. So that's an open Slack channel that anyone can join. We encourage you to all come along and actually join it. And of course tonight, if you are going to tweet, do so and just throw in the hashtag WP Melb. We have a bunch of sponsors. First up, the pizza you had tonight, that was brought to you by Invado. They've been sponsoring us basically since day dot, so it's great to have them back year after year. They run Theme Forest, Toots Plus, and a whole lot of other both sort of blogs and also marketplace sites. Our venue sponsor tonight is SitePoint. SitePoint's pretty much a local institution. They've been around in Melbourne for I think decades, I think at least 2, or around 2 anyway. And they're always looking for new authors on sitepoint.com. So if you've got something that you want to write, go ahead and do get in contact with SitePoint. They'd love to hear from you and have you on as an author. And finally, we'd also like to thank Copyblogger and in fact Studio and their product StudioPress. StudioPress is built on the Genesis framework, and it is designed to make building WordPress sites easier. So just going through a bit of news. The big news is that WordPress 4.3 was released overnight. It's up around 1 million downloads now. This screenshot was taken quite early this morning. So there's a whole lot of posts on make.wordpress.org that detail all the changes. So you just need to go to make.wordpress.org and look for the WordPress 4.3 field notes, and that will just give you all the crib notes on what's in WordPress 4.3. So 4.3 is old news. With 4.4, we're in 4.4 alpha at the moment, and Scott Taylor will be taking the lead, and he's already starting to seek feedback from people about what they'd like to see in WordPress 4.4. So again, keep an eye on the Make blog just to see when a call is put out, and there'll be planning meetings and roadmaps and all sorts of things. During the week, or over the weekend rather, there was a security release for the WordPress REST API for both version 1 and the beta that will eventually make its way into core. They were patching a potential cross-site scripting vulnerability. Also worth keeping an eye on, they've announced a conference called the Day of REST, which is going to be coming up in January, all about the WordPress REST API. It's going to be happening in London, but I have seen discussion that it will be streamed. So if you go to feelingrestful.com, you'll be able to sign up to a mailing list and get information about streaming when that comes to pass. And finally, our friends over in the Joomla community had their 10th anniversary on Monday. On August 17 in 2005, former members of the Mambo core development team created what was ultimately to become the Joomla project. So they've been celebrating much like we did in the WordPress community a couple of years ago. Tonight's talks, I've been putting on this for preparing this for a little while. It's all about imposter syndrome. So tonight we've got talks lined up from Dee Teal and Gary Pendergast. To give you an idea about what imposter syndrome is, my day job is I work in the glamorous enterprise contract management field. So I work with people and we make enterprise software. I'm the front-end developer and I work with Java devs, and they basically write this software that can handle logic trees with 10,000 decision points in there, and I can recreate the blink tag with 6 lines of CSS. Occasionally I will, of course, write a few lines of Java, mainly just to sort of manipulate a little bit of HTML, because it's easier than just begging some time from one of the back-end developers. But I usually make a joke after this about getting someone to endorse me for Java on LinkedIn. Every now and then one of the real devs will say how nice it is to have someone working with them writing proper modern front-end code, because for a long time they didn't have that. And they're just enjoying the fact that there's a good, proper front-end developer. But I know that they're being nice. I'm not a real developer, I'm only a front-end developer. And I know I'm not a real developer because a real developer wouldn't get nervous making a suggestion in a Slack channel. I've actually faked this video because it's pretty much a quick motion version of what happened, and it lasts 1.5 minutes. It starts out as making a simple suggestion in the WordPress Slack channel, but almost ends up as an apology for daring to make a suggestion in the first place. But I know that I'm not the only one who suffers from imposter syndrome. It's basically sort of refusing to acknowledge that you have the skills, or even convincing yourself that you don't have them at all. At Clear Left, which is one of the largest agencies in the United Kingdom and one of the best known agencies in the world, they have a simple technique for beating imposter syndrome. And it's this pinboard that you see up there behind me. And every time someone in the Clear Left offices learns something new, they add it to the skills board. And what I find interesting about it is that even Jeremy Keith has a spot. Jeremy Keith is one of the most widely respected front-end developers globally, and he needs to remind himself that he's learning stuff every day. So that's what imposter syndrome is. And tonight we've got 2 talks lined up. One from Dee talking about what it's costing you, and one from Gary talking about recovering. So what we might do is just take a break, get Dee set up, and we'll be back in a moment or so.
Well, you're going to introduce me, aren't you? You're going to get fancy.
So some of last century's greatest philosophers said you get your money for nothing. And so it is with getting over imposter syndrome. So please welcome Dee to talk about the cost of imposter syndrome. Dee's a Genesis developer, one of the organisers of this very meetup, and sender of invoices. Please welcome Dee Teal.
Thanks, Pete. Thank you. Hi, as Pete already said, I'm Dee Teal. I'm a recovering imposter. Well, we're going to start this conversation with a story, and it starts out like this. The phone rings. I answer the phone. My friend Anna is on the other end of the line, and this is how she starts the conversation. So we're off to a cracking start. My friend calls me up, and the first thing that she tells me is, "Don't yell at me." We're not going to dwell on the fact that my friends and my clients think that I would, but the conversation proceeds like this. Let me set the scene for a second for the kind of background of this conversation. I have 2 friends. Anna is one of them, Bev is the other. Anna is a social media contractor. She does social media for small and medium businesses. Bev does social media training for large enterprise clients. And it happened that Anna got one of those calls. Hey, we're really sorry, we're taking our social media in-house. We're not going to need you anymore. And she'd started to get a bit wobbly. It's like, oh, yeah, as we do as freelancers when we lose clients. And so I had this thought, maybe I can connect her up with Bev and maybe they'd be able to find some mutual benefit in that connection. Quite apart from the fact they're both in similar fields, they're both quite similar people, and I thought that they'd really get along. As it happened, the conversation flowed, they did get along really well, they started talking about the possibility of working together. So what I'm relating to you in these slides is an actual conversation that happened post them actually getting to the point where we're starting to talk about working together. And Anna says to me, she asked me that awful question. Can anybody predict or what that question might actually be?
How much do you charge?
That's exactly right. How much do you charge? That horrible, awful question where you have to go, now I actually have to tell this person what kind of value I put on my time and my experience. So I'm like, okay. Now, as it happened, Bev and I had a great many conversations about training and the cost of training, mostly because she was telling me that I wasn't charging enough for the training that I was doing. At that time, I was doing training, I was charging $490 a day, and we sat down and kind of nutted out. I started processing, because I was coming to it with that background knowledge of what Bev charges, that I was actually able to say to Anna, well, let's nut this out and work it through. I'm pretty confident that Bev is charging out her services at $1,700 a day, so we're not going to go that high because obviously she's going to want to make some money on actually using Anna's services to provide the same sort of service. So here's how it went. Okay, and so I'm talking this out loud on the phone. Okay, so 8 hours a day, $120 an hour, calculator, because I can't do this sort of shit in my head, $960. Then let's add a couple of hours for, prep and for marking or whatever you're going to have to do around the actual time that you're on site. So here we've got a grand total of $1,200. It gets very quiet on the other end of the phone. So Anna says to me, do you want to know what I had written down? I'm like, sure. I'm like, I'm sorry? And she goes, $50 an hour. Which is where the don't yell at me comes in, because frankly, she knew that she was undervaluing herself. And she knew when she says to me, she was annoyed about it, and she thought that I would be annoyed about it as well. But here's the funny thing. It wasn't actually that long ago that I was having the same conversation with somebody else that she was having with me. It's just that the scale was different. So we've all been in those places. We've all shortchanged ourselves. You probably don't need me to tell you any of the following, but here are 4 ways in which imposter syndrome may in fact cost you money. First off, this prime example, you won't charge what you are worth. The figure in your head will be small, just like Anna's, and you will be able to come up with any number of reasons why you don't actually deserve to be charging out at any higher rate than that. Number 2, you won't accept that stretching project that you could take or that you may have been offered. You don't think you're there yet. You're not completely sure that at this point you have the skills to carry it off. So you hesitate, and he who hesitates, as we know, is the one who loses the contract. You won't ask for a pay rise. You may not be a freelancer or a contractor like a lot of us are. You may be working for an agency, but you may be going through your daily life and working on your projects and learning and growing and developing with each new project that you do. And every time you do that, every new skill that you acquire actually adds value that the company can charge out for. But the company isn't necessarily, unless you're wanting with these great, awesome, funky new startups that go, hey, we want to pay everybody double. Not everybody lives in that world, and a lot of agencies will not come forward and say, I really want to pay you more. They'll wait for you to ask, and if you don't ask, you miss opportunities that you might otherwise have had. And then the last thing is that you might not apply for that grant, or you might not apply for that startup, or you might have a dusty startup sitting in your back room that you have hesitated to actually do anything with because, well, why would? The imposter was busy telling you, why would anybody give you any money? The startup is a stupid idea. So we live with these voices in our head, and this voice that tells us that we aren't who other people think we are. We're quite different and an awful lot smaller. There could be other areas in your world, there could be other situations like that, but those are the 4 that I've basically come up with as ones that perhaps that I've come across in my time in this business. So the next big question is, how do you get past it? Being confident in what you're capable of doesn't just come from positive affirmations. You can have them all plastered all over your mirror when you get up in the morning and brush your teeth. I can do this, I'm not an imposter, I'm an awesome web developer. I don't know how many of you remember that little kid that used to stand in the mirror and do affirmations that went viral. We can do that, but in actual fact, confidence comes from feeling and understanding our authority that we have to speak about or to do our thing. I'm living proof of this in action. I'm known as a Genesis developer. I wasn't always that. In fact, I wasn't ever really known for a long time, and I made a decision in the middle of 2011 to put myself forward to do a talk about Genesis. And in actual fact, I posted that talk, it got accepted within 24 hours, and I was announced as a speaker about Genesis 24 hours after that, and in actual fact, I didn't know anything about it at that point. So here's me going, oh shit, now I really have to learn this thing, because in November I'm actually going to have to teach people about it. So putting that at a deadline, that's the way I have to get stuff done, because I'll go, yeah, I really, really need to learn JavaScript. But until I have a project that says I really need to learn JavaScript, I don't do it. I think about it and don't actually do it. So here's me putting myself out there and going, okay, so I need to learn about Genesis. And then getting on that ball and getting that one rolling actually really turned into me knowing a lot more about it now than I did certainly then. And people will call me an expert, and I know a lot about it, but there's a million people that know way more than me. So I know what I know, and I know where to find out information that I don't know for when those people ask me the really curly questions. I've actually gone and done it again. I put in a talk proposal for the Linux conference early next year, and I'm going to talk about the WordPress REST API, about which I know absolutely nothing at the moment. So we'll see if we get accepted. I'll learn it if I get accepted, otherwise it'll just sit there and wait. So I guess what I'm getting to with that point is that when you have putting yourself out there in those kind of situations actually brings with it a certain amount of authority. I can stand up and talk confidently about Genesis. People start recognizing that you have that authority, and then people will start to respond to that. And certainly as someone who's known now as a Genesis developer, I have people approaching me for work in that kind of field, because I'm recognized as someone who has that authority. And when somebody comes to me and says, hey Dee, I hear you're a Genesis dev and we really need to fix this thing, or we really need to build this thing, I can respond to that confidently most of the time. And I will respond to that confidently, even if the back of my head is going, okay, shit, I'm going to really need to talk to so-and-so about that, because I know that bit is the bit that I don't know. But having come up with that authority, I feel a lot more confident now than I did. So that's one of the things that you can do to actually start building that up, is actually working on developing authority in the fields that you really want to be known for. Inventory your successes. It's easy to sit there and have the imposter sitting there talking in your ear going, you suck at this, no, this was really shit, oh no, this isn't, oh no, you can't really ask them that. When in actual fact, you have had successes. You've got to where you are by having achieved certain things. So sit down and write a list of those and actually go, God damn it, yeah, I did do that good thing. And even actually having an inventory of those and actually taking honest stock will actually help make it a lot easier to get confident about what you're doing. It's okay to high-five yourself when you finish something good. Permit yourself pride in your achievements. When you learn something new and you put it into practice, when you conquer a hurdle that's been tripping you up, it's okay to say, yay! And it's actually okay to jump on Slack and go, hey, high-five me, I did this thing. But it's not okay to be a dick about it, just so you know. Just a little high-five. Hey, I did a good thing, yeah. You're going to have to edit that out of the tape, is that what you're saying? Don't be a dick about it. You know the kind, don't be that. Say thank you. When somebody compliments you, when somebody says thanks, you gave me a lot of help there, don't go, oh, it was nothing. Say thank you, accept graciously. And trust that when somebody offers you thanks for something that you've offered them, they actually mean it. And something that may be small and trivial for you may be a really big deal for somebody else. I know that there's been plenty of times when Somebody's offered me just this tiny little thing and it's made a massive difference to whatever I'm working on or whatever I'm doing. So say thanks, be gracious. Believing that what you're doing has the power to have a difference to somebody else is hugely beneficial in keeping you motivated and elevating your confidence levels. Stop comparing yourself to others. This is probably the one that should be number one, quite honestly, because often what I see is that's the thing. The imposter is going, oh, but you're not her, and oh, you're not him, but you are you, and you do great things. Stop it, just stop it. You wouldn't have got this far by accident, so trust that where you are today is fully deserved and that the best is yet to come. And finally, believe that where you are today is not where you're going to stay, but do take the steps to make that true. That, okay, so I'm here in this thing, I have taken an honest stock of where I'm at, I know that I want to go to here, so actually start taking the steps to actually make some of those things happen, because we can all sit there frustrated that this imposter is telling us that we're rubbish and we're not doing anything, but if we are just sitting there and not doing anything, we're not actually going to get any further. So that's my advice. I'm Dee, I'm a recovering imposter. Thank you very much. I see shaking heads. What are they shaking heads for? Are we handing this over to Gary now? No.
Yes.
Yes. You can, sure, ask away.
Sorry, Gary. No.
We're going to do questions now? We're going to do questions. We can do questions now. What do you want to do, Pete? You're the boss. Do a questions now. Okay, ask a question.
You mentioned an interesting word during that, which is grants. And
What did I say?
like applying for grants.
Grants. Yes, grants. Sorry.
In the music world, that's pretty common, but in the development world, I've never heard of it. How does that work?
Well, I'm thinking, I mean, I may not have used the terminology correctly. I know that there are small business startup grants, that the grants, that Victorian government will do. I think there are grants. I think there are also grants if you're a small business. I think there are grants to actually travel to do conferences. You just have to go looking for it. But I know that, and you know what, I haven't sat down and done the research to go, these are the things that you can apply for, but I know that there is stuff out there, particularly in small business if you're a freelancer. I know that the Victorian government are quite keen to get behind small business, and so will often, I believe that there are things out there that you can actually apply for. But it also applies if you've got startups and incubators that are making offers, you know, come in here and show us your cool thing. We want to help you and help fund you get your startup off the ground. The same sort of situation applies, as a lot of us will sit out there and go, oh, I did have this thing and maybe it would be cool. But, you know, making a business plan is hard and I don't know how to do it, and so I won't. Whereas my advice is find somebody who does know how to do a business plan and write your business plan and get that startup off the ground. Does that answer the question? You're welcome. Does anybody else have any questions? Wow, that was easy. Thank you.
This century's greatest philosopher once said, we are never, ever getting back together, like ever. And so it applies for our next speaker, Gary Pendergast, and imposter syndrome. He has broken up with imposter syndrome. So please welcome WordPress core committer, automatician, and the guy most famous for emoji, Gary Pendergast.
Thanks, Pete. I'm smarter than you. It's a very presumptuous phrase, isn't it? It'd be a bit weird if I was going up to people saying, hi, I'm Gary, I'm smarter than you. It's also true. I can guarantee that in any fight, I can sit down with any one of you, and in 5 minutes, a 5-minute conversation, we'll discover something that I know that you don't. I mean, obviously I don't know everything. Obviously I don't know everything more than everyone. But I guarantee that there's one thing that I know that someone else here doesn't. Of course, that means that the reverse applies too. In the same 5-minute conversation, we'll learn something that you know that I don't. You're smarter than me. Now, I don't just mean the little things. I could cheat and I could say, oh, My cat's names are Jarvis and Ivy. I mean, I couldn't use that now, I just told you, but you get the idea. There are things that you know about your job, about what you create, that you know that I don't. So my WordPress expertise is in WordPress core, particularly in database, in performance, and in security kind of things. If you have a problem with one of those things, there's a good chance that I'll know the answer or I'll know where to find the answer. But outside of that, my ignorance is astounding. To say that, to say that the candle of my knowledge is vastly outshone by the huge flaming ball of my ignorance is the understatement of the year, or at least the understatement of tonight. I totally accept that I'm the Jon Snow of web development. I know nothing. Yes, but the important thing is that I know nothing. And I know that I can learn. So let me give you an example. I'm quite certain that I would be a terrible, terrible freelancer. I have no ability to negotiate. I have no ability to set scope or prevent scope creep or any of those useful things that you need to do to run a successful business. Years ago, I was traveling around Europe, wasting money mostly, and I picked up a little contract building a website for a company that I'd met. They needed some custom work done and all that kind of thing, and I'd offered them a fairly low price. It's like whatever it was, a few €1,000, but it also involved custom work, so I really should have been charging a lot more than that. And then they came back to me and asked me what discount I could offer if they paid cash. Obviously with the implication that if they pay cash, then I don't declare it, I don't pay tax, yada, yada, yada. Actually, before I go on, is there anyone from the ATO here? No? Good. Is this being recorded on video? Oh, anyone from the ATO or from the Italian tax authorities? If you're watching this is a made-up story. It's a metaphor. It's completely true. So anyway, with my legal issues taken care of, so they asked me what kind of discount they could offer me. I could offer them if I broke the law for them. So the smart thing to say would be, oh, I don't know, that already is my discount rate, or no, I'm not going to break the law for you. That's not what I did. Instead, no negotiation, like I straight up offered them like €1,000 discount. Just because, I'm not going to declare it on tax. Yes, imposter syndrome is costing you money. So I'm telling this story, apart from it being kind of amusing, is to remind you that we're all terrible at something. That I couldn't start my own business because I cannot run a business. It's not even a case of learning on the go. I probably couldn't keep it running long enough to learn how to make it not fail. But if, and God help us all, I did decide to start a company, I wouldn't be starting from that point of ignorance. It's just looking around this room alone. There are people here who are freelancers, people who have their own plugin shops or theme shops, who run their own successful small businesses. And I know that all of you would be happy to share what you know, because there's more value in sharing that knowledge and in receiving knowledge back than there is in hoarding it to yourself. So how many of you, speaking of emoji, read the Trojan emoji story on Post Status or watched Andrew Nason's talk on it? A few people? Okay, so for a quick recap, about a year and a half ago, there was a very severe security bug in WordPress. And there are a bunch of details, but the important thing is that it had to do with how MySQL handles character sets, how it handles encoding characters in different languages and what have you. At the time, my entire knowledge of character sets could be summed up in 2 points: that they exist and that they're a way of encoding characters. That's it. That's not a summary. That is the sum total of what I knew about character sets. So that was my canvas. We needed a fix for this security issue. It needed to work. It needed to be completely backwards compatible. It needed to be invisible, and it needed to not break the entire internet. So I spent a year learning. I spoke to many people in the international WordPress community who were smarter than me, learned about their experiences with character sets. I spoke to many people in the MySQL community, getting their input as well. And along the way, I learned how to work with character sets because the communities valued sharing knowledge. And along the way, we went through about 100 iterations of the patch, including like 5 complete rewrites. We got very efficient at rewriting this code. And we used emoji as a cover to get it into core because we needed more people testing it. So that's where the whole Trojan emoji thing comes from. So if you hear me talking about emoji a lot, then it's probably just PTSD or Stockholm Syndrome or something. But the point is, the patch that we committed didn't magically emerge fully formed. It was the result of a year of work of collaborating with a bunch of talented developers. It's very easy to look at the things that others create and judge our initial sketches against that. If you're starting to learn about character sets, for example, you wouldn't try and learn by understanding a ridiculously complex 1,000-line patch. You'd start by looking at the first iteration of that patch, which was something like 12 lines. It also didn't work. In this community where people create truly awesome things, it's very easy to get caught up and compare ourselves to the end product. It's easy to lose sight of the fact that everyone started somewhere. So everyone starts with a blank screen or an empty file or 0 customers. And we forget that it takes time to build towards the ultimate goal. So one more story, this time more recent. 2 weeks ago, I was staring at an empty file and I was seriously about to email Pete and just tell him I couldn't do it. Like I could not do the talk tonight. I've seen Dee speak many times. I was like, well, how can I follow Dee? She's a really great speaker. And at some point, as I've been getting at, the obvious thing clicked. That this is exactly what we're talking about tonight. That I was comparing my initial sketches to an imagined end product, to someone else's polished end product. And I'd already decided that because that I'd have nothing to contribute because someone else would cover it anyway. Anyway, there's a point to all this. One of the most important values I see in open source communities and in the WordPress community in particular is the desire to share knowledge. Everyone in this room has something that they can share that will make the community as a whole smarter. So I'll put my money, or my blog at least, where my mouth is. So if there's something in WordPress bugging you that you want to know, then ask me and I'll write about it. And hopefully in my own way, I can help make us all smarter too. Thank you.